The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley,
Excused.
Bridges, Buckner, Senator Buckner, Coleman, Cutter,
Excused.
Danielson, Exum, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Senator Gonzalez, Hanson, Hinrichsen, Huckes Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundin, Marchman, Michelson Janae, Senator Michelson Janae, Malika, Pelton B, Pelton R,
Excused.
Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Smallwood, Senator Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Zenzinger, Mr. President,
Here. The morning roll call is 32 present, 0 absent, 3 excused. We do have a quorum. Senator Will, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Marchman.
I move that the Senate Journal of April 12, 2024 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? No! The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
April 15, 2024, correctly engrossed Senate Bills 173, 179, and 183, correctly revised House Bills 1002, 1234, 1254, 1272, 1275, 1285, 1305, 1318, and 1354, correctly revised House Bills 1154 and 1323, correctly enrolled Senate Bills 26, 161, 172, and 177.
Message from the House.
April 14, 2024, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the revisor of statutes House Bills 1313, 1292, 1152, 1294, 1344, 1377, and 1378, amended as printed in the House Journal, April 12, 2024. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the revisor of statutes House Bills 1351, 1232, and 1383. The House has passed on third reading and returns herewith Senate Bill 137. The House has adopted the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1430 as printed in the House Journal, April 12, 2024, and has repassed the bill as amended.
Message from the revisor.
No, I haven't said the message yet. Do you want, he's trying to get to it. Which do you want me to do? April 15, 2024, we herewith transmit without comment House Bills 1232, 1315, and 1383 without comment as amended House Bills 1152, 1292, 1294, 1313, 1344, 1377, and 1378.
Committee reports.
April 10, 2024, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration on the merits of committee recommends following Senate Bill 130 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for the consideration of memorials.
The motion is to proceed out of order for the consideration of memorials. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will now proceed out of order. Consideration of memorials. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Joint Memorial 3?
Senate Joint Memorial 3 by Senators Lundin and Gardner and Representatives Wilson and Pugliese, memorializing former Senator Keith King.
Mr. Minority Leader.
I move the Senate memorial.
Is there any discussion?
And ask
Mr.
it to
Minority
be
Leader.
read at length.
Will the clerk please read Senate Joint Memorial 3 at length?
Senate Joint Memorial 3 by Senators Lundin and Gardner and Representatives Wilson and Pugliese, memorializing former Senator Keith King. Whereas former Colorado Representative, Senator, businessman, and education leader Keith King was born in Tico, Washington on March 12, 1948, and whereas Senator King began his lifelong dedication to education by earning a bachelor's degree in industrial education at Colorado State University Pueblo in 1970, and a master's degree in vocational education at Oregon State University in 1976. And whereas Senator King married his wife Sandy in 1972, and together they had 2 sons, Jeremy and Brandon, and eventually 5 wonderful grandchildren. And whereas Senator King began his career teaching high school in California and Oregon in the 1970s, during this time, he and his 1976-77 industrial mechanics students took on an impressive class project building a house on a job site. And whereas in 1977, Senator King returned to Colorado and started a new phase in his life as owner of Waterbed Palace, a business that thrived under his leadership, eventually expanding to 18 stores in 6 states. Whereas in 1991, Senator King was elected to the Cheyenne Mountain School Board, and after the end of his term in 1995, he helped found Cheyenne Mountain Charter Academy, serving as its president from 1995 until 1998. And whereas Senator King began his legislative career in the Colorado House of Representatives in 1998, he served 4 terms and was elected Assistant Majority Leader in 2001 and Majority Leader in 2003. As a testament to his leadership, he was named Legislator of the Year in 2002 by the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce and in 2003 by the Economic Development Council of Colorado. And whereas carrying his passion for education to the State House, then Representative King soon began to build on his predecessor's work on the charter school system. In his very first session as a legislator, he sponsored 2 important bills to improve charter school operations. In sessions that followed, he also focused on the funding systems for education, sponsoring the College Opportunity Fund bill and the annual school finance bill. And whereas, after 2 years away from the General Assembly, he ran for the Colorado State Senate and was elected to represent District 12 in 2008. Senator King would go on to serve 4 years in that role. And whereas Senator King was known for his attention to detail as a legislator and earned the title of Amendment King during his time at the state capitol. No one read bills more thoroughly than King, said former Senator Evie Hudak, with plenty of amendments to follow. And whereas in 2012, upon King's retirement from the Senate, then Senator Mike Johnson said, Senator King has done as much for education policy in the last 14 years as anyone in the state, both on the ground running a school and working in education policy. And whereas current legislators continue to admire Senator King and his legacy, such as Representative Don Wilson, who called Senator King a humble and hardworking man that so many of us looked up to, Keith had an amazingly positive impact on Colorado that will not soon be forgotten. And whereas when this dedicated policymaker left the State House, he continued his public service on the Colorado Springs City Council and on numerous boards and planning councils for charter schools throughout the state. And whereas Keith's goal was to honor his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, by his favorite scripture, Psalm 71, 14 through 18, as for me, I will always have hope. I will praise you more and more. My mouth will tell of your righteous deeds, of your saving acts all day long, though I know not how to relate them all. I will come and proclaim your mighty acts, sovereign Lord. I will proclaim your righteous deeds, yours alone. Since my youth, God, you have taught me, and to this day I declare your marvelous deeds. Even when I am old and gray, do not forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 74th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the Colorado General Assembly, honor Senator Keith King for his many years of service to our state and the impact his work will have for generations to come. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint memorial be sent to Sandy King, Jeremy King, and Brandon King.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would encourage my colleagues, guests, and friends to go ahead and be seated if you'd like. I'm going to be very, very brief because there are so many people here today who would like to share their thoughts and reminiscences of Senator King. I would simply make 3 quick points because we all know a good sermon always has 3 points. Keith King was an incredible entrepreneur. And he was a unique entrepreneur in that it wasn't about making money. It was about developing relationships. It was about building community. It was about fostering families. Keith King was an incredible legislator. Keith King, I think, would have dreams that would become ideas that he would spin into incredibly effective policy. And Keith King was a man of faith. He was that sort of man of faith that everyone was attracted to. He was not ashamed of his faith. He was not bashful about his faith, but he did not ever pound anyone over the head with his faith. 1 Corinthians 13:1 tells us exactly how we should live and how Keith King did live. It says, if I speak in the tongues of men and angels, and there are many in this business of politics that speak in the tongues of men, and some actually speak as if angelic in the way they speak, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Keith King had love. And his words, his thoughts, his actions, rooted in his faith, moved many people.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. I thought a lot about what I would say this morning or what particular memories I had of Senator King. Keith King was my predecessor in the House, but I knew him long before, and it caused me to remember that my first encounter with him was when he was a school board member, and I think probably in his first term in the Cheyenne Mountain School Board. My son, who's over 40 now, was probably 7 or 8 or 9, and I was a assistant Cub Scout den leader, and we had the program to talk to a local elected official. So we have about 12 squirming 8, 9, and 10-year-old boys, and I called this guy, Keith King, on the phone, who was a school board member and a neighbor, and he agreed to come and talk, and I remember he did so well with them. He's an experienced family man, so he did so well with them, and I got to know him. Politics is a funny business, all of you know that. Funny in the odd sense of the way things happen. Senator King was on the Cheyenne Mountain School Board and an advocate for school choice, as you all know. I was among a group of people who wanted to found one of the earliest charter schools. And as a school board member, he was an advocate for us in getting that done. Now, when you go to one of the top 5 wealthy districts in the state and you say that in 1993 or 4 that you wanted to start a charter school, you're your welcome might not have been the warmest. But we had an advocate on the school board, and it was Keith King. And over many, many negotiations, we negotiated a charter contract and were able to open Cheyenne Mountain Charter Academy, Vanguard, which has its existence because of Keith King. That cost him politically. It's not in the resolution, but that cost him politically. He ran for re-election to the school board and lost. But he didn't go away. He came on the board of the charter school, and thank goodness he did, because we needed experience on our board in those first years. And then, term limits being what they are, Speaker Chuck Berry was term limited, and what was then House District 21 opened up, and Keith mentioned to me, I'd been Republican County Chair. He said, someone asked me if I'd consider running for the State House. Are you thinking about it? I'd been a county chair, and I said, enough for me right now. I have a family to raise. And so he ran for House District 21 and was elected. And he went from being a school board member to writing the School Finance Act. Politics is a strange and interesting business as to how it turns out, because his legislative career and his making of education policy has had more influence than I think any single person in 2 decades. He was a friend, a mentor, someone that I could always go to and talk to, whether it was about the numbers, because he was a numbers guy, of a way that I can't even wrap my head around. Those of you that knew him know that as well. His running of a successful business made him a person who could run the numbers in his head while I'm still trying to figure out the spreadsheet. He was a committed Christian, and there's a heavy burden for those who profess their Christianity in the political world, and that is that others look at you and say, well, that person's a Christian, and they profess to love everyone. Keith lived up to that every single day in this building, and the presence of so many of you here, and of both parties and staff members and others, is a witness to the fact that he loved each and every person he encountered. This morning, his wife Sandy had some thoughts that she wanted to share, and I told her that I would do that. And I'm touched by this in so many ways, so let me share it with you. She and the family want to thank you for honoring Keith today. She said he really loved being a part of this legislative body. It was one of the greatest highlights of his life. And she wanted to share 2 basic points about him. He loved our country and our wonderful state, and he wanted to do everything he could to help make it better. He believed in our American system of governing because he realized where it came from, and he knew that our founding fathers studied their Bibles at night and came together the following day to write our laws. That's how we get our 3 branches of government. The founding fathers found them in Isaiah 33:22. See if you can hear the 3 branches of government from Isaiah. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. It is he who will save us. The judge, of course, is the judicial branch, the lawgiver, the legislative, and the executive branch is the president or governor. Senator King elected Jesus Christ to be his king, his personal executive branch of government. And the second thing Sandy wanted to share and asked that I do is that Keith took to heart a very famous quote from President Abraham Lincoln. Many of you may have heard it. It's always meant a lot to me as well. During the Civil War, when Lincoln was asked if he thought God was on the side of the Union, Lincoln replied, "Sir, my concern is not whether God is on our side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side, for God is always right." Being on God's side was why Keith wanted to equip people to pursue their God, give their dreams, because he knew that God was always right. Thank you all for being here. We will take a moment later and thank each and every one of you in person. But when I close, I want to say how much it was that on every personal encounter in this very sometimes contentious place, on very tough issues, there was never a time that Keith King did not encounter people with love, with grace, and with understanding. He was the greatest of legislators, the greatest of human beings, and we miss him greatly.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that we suspend the appropriate rule to allow former members of the House and Senate to speak while we're in recess.
Mr. Minority Leader, we will do that momentarily, but let's let existing current members speak before we go into recess. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to talk about an issue that hasn't been brought up, but that changed the trajectory of my career starting at a very young age, and it all started with Senator King. Because he is so detail-oriented, he was so intelligent, he really understood what conservation easements were. And you all know that it's not a legislative session if I don't bring a conservation easement bill. And he was the first person who taught me about how conservation easements worked, about the mechanics of conservation easements, and at the time, what was wrong with them. And you know we've been through iteration after iteration to where they are today, where there's safeguards and there's parameters and there's not abuse in the system. And I feel that a lot of those solutions came from Senator King. And without those solutions, without that understanding, without passing on that information, we wouldn't have conservation easements today. And so as a young person working on public lands, he helped me understand that mechanism, and I've worked diligently to continue that legacy and make sure we're preserving the lands in Colorado, which he was passionate about.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend Senate Rule 31A for the purpose of allowing current and former members of the House to address the Senate from the well to consider this memorial.
Members, this takes a 2/3 vote. You may want to look around the room before you vote and careful what you approve. You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will now stand in recess to hear remarks from members of the House and former members of the Senate. Members, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Please feel free to make your way to the well to share words of the late member. President Cadman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, you know, I've been gone 8 years and so many advances here. You finally have a directory posted in the elevators. Congratulations. But this thing is still stuck to the floor, unlike the House. That was a touching memorial. Sort of made me look forward to mine. And I know some of you that served in the House when I served in the Senate are also looking forward to mine. But you could stop texting that to me. You know, I was a little concerned initially that we would be repeating what each other said today. And then I remembered, this is the Senate. If we didn't do that, a 120-day session would only take about 6 days. But Senator King was a man whose given name truly reflected who he was. You've already heard that this morning. Keith Christian King. He lived his life as a Christian, serving his King, his God. Keith loved Jesus. It was his lifelong faith and the love of our Lord and Savior that guided his thoughts, his life pursuits, and his actions. And through Keith's faith, I think because of Keith's faith, he was called to serve others and answered that call every day, as Senator Gardner shared as well. He did that in everything he did. He first and foremost loved his family. And he answered the call to serve them. Sandy and Jeremy and Brandon, you were his earthly foundation here. And the time away from you was a sacrifice for Keith and for all of you. And thank you for enduring the constant separation of Keith's public service, which was significant. And we didn't even talk about the campaigns. Who could go through all those campaigns? And has anyone in here ever seen anything but a smile on Sandy's face? How is that possible? My wife asked me that about you this morning. Keith loved building his incredibly successful business, and he answered the call to serve his employees and their families. That's actually what he loved about his business. One of his former employees posted the following message. Posted a message of appreciation for what Keith did for her as her first employer 45 years ago. 45 years ago, and she's still remembering what Keith meant to her. Keith answered the call to serve in his church, as you would expect from a man of his faith. And one of their fellow parishioners for the King's Church said the following: I was in your Sunday Bible class at Radiant Church in between services because I was in choir. I loved Keith's teaching. His inspiration was uplifting and will be remembered for his love of God and of people. Keith also answered his calling, his higher calling, through public service. And he was a true servant leader in every sense of the word. As you heard, he served on the school board. He was the president of a charter school and helped to start many others. He served 12 years in the House and the Senate. Some of us might consider that more of a sentence. He created Colorado early colleges all across the Front Range in his spare time. And he served on the Colorado Springs City Council, I believe was the president at the end of his service. Keith epitomized what most of us believe a public servant should be. He used his position at every step to improve the lives of others, which takes us to Keith's life work to improve education and expand educational opportunities for generations of kids, especially those with the least access to quality and to choice. Someone on social media said the following: Keith was an absolute giant advocating for young people with an unyielding belief in their innate capability and value. We disagreed about a lot of other things, which actually makes me even more grateful to have been a frequent, joyful partner with Keith on big ideas that served Colorado's young people well. I wondered if one of you may have posted this. not because we disagreed on several things. Colorado Politics called Keith a titan of school choice. The Colorado Springs Gazette said it was education, both K-12 and higher education, that was his mission, his life mission. And he sponsored 2 bills to improve charter schools, operations, and funding in his first session in 1999. In 2004, Keith sponsored the landmark College Opportunity Fund Bill, which dramatically changed the funding system for public colleges and universities, removing their cash funds, which were the largest cash funds in the state, from Tabor. That's right, Keith King removed cash funds from Tabor. Yes, he was a Republican. Keith carried the annual School Finance Act 3 times. Who does that voluntarily? Anyone? 3 times. Maybe Senator Anderson. Senator King would be thrilled that this body has finally addressed the negative factor. And for those new people here, I see you smiling. That was the budget stabilization factor. That was a challenge that endured in this building for too many years, actually too many decades. Right? Keith would also be in this building every day, challenging any effort to dismantle 30 years of education innovation. He viewed access to a high-quality education as a civil right, as an American birthright. I think he was onto something. Personally, Keith was one of the first legislators to endorse me in my first campaign for the State House. I heard that. Where's my gavel? Oh. May I borrow my gavel? He even co-hosted my first town hall pancake breakfast fundraiser at a VFW 26 years ago. He was one of the busiest people I knew, but he took time out for me. He was also one of the most organized people I have ever met. He took me into his office at the Waterbed Palace as I was getting ready for my campaign and showed me all of these 3-ring binders. They were everywhere. They were just rows and rows and rows of them. And this was just his campaign stuff. And that's back when Amendment 15 had kicked in and donations were limited to $100. So can you imagine what it took to run a campaign with $100 limits back then? But he had everything so neatly organized, all the messages, the postcards, his mail, and his donors. We went on to serve together in the House and then the Senate. But during the 2011 reapportionment process, my house was drawn into Keith's district, Senate District 12, Senator Gardner's district, by literally the width of a Sharpie pen. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. It couldn't have been, could it? President Carroll, if you are listening to this somewhere, please text me. It's okay. It's been 13 years and I'm almost over it. You can certainly understand the challenge this would present for 2 close colleagues serving in this body. Rock, paper, scissors, wrestling. So there were a few days where I wrestled with what would happen next and how to handle this situation. Although I was the minority leader then and had planned to run for my final term, I couldn't imagine running against Senator King, my mentor, my colleague, my friend, and I wasn't sure what he was thinking yet. But one afternoon, Keith comes to my office and knocks on the door, comes in, shuts the door behind him, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, here we go. And yes, he delivered the bad news to me as only Keith King could. Bill, I want you to run for that new Senate seat. He said I'd been doing a good job as minority leader and he wanted to support me going forward, hoping that our efforts would retain the majority. Imagine hearing that from such an iconic leader who himself would have been Speaker. It was humbling, and it was certainly empowering. So obviously I went on to win that term and came back, but that first session with Keith King's loss was significant to those in this body, who serve in this body, who support this body, and certainly the education world. This institution and this state lost a legislative superstar and an amazing, great leader. Senator Keith Christian King was a brother in Christ. He was a mentor. He was a friend, and not just to me, but to many of us, and he will be missed. But I am telling you, Keith is celebrating today, and I guarantee you, Keith is chairing a committee in heaven, and they are working on amendments to the Bible while we speak. Let me leave you with a Bible verse that I believe Keith King tried to live by every day. And I think he would offer these words himself to encourage each of you in your work here and in your lives. And what is this day 97? With what's left, perhaps this will be helpful. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. Do everything in love. Do everything in love. 1 Corinthians. Thank you, Sandy and Brandon and Jeremy and your families. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's actually an honor to be here. Did this shrink? It's an honor to be here with the family and with you today to tell you a little bit about my experiences with Senator King. You know, when I started in the House, I had grand visions on how to solve problems and move forward. And I got educated real quick on how the political world actually works. And then when Keith came to the Senate, he was one of those guys that actually came to my office and sat down and wanted to learn more about me. And so we had a long conversation, a very long conversation. And we talked about education. And being from a rural area of the state, our choice is this public school or this public school 40 miles away. But we talked about those options and charter schools and all the things that could make kids better and give parents the ability to be able to actually do what's best for their children. And as we had those conversations, I was amazed. He was one of the very few legislators that I would talk with or sit with that actually sat there and listened. Listened to every word, looked you in the eye, and then responded. Wasn't thinking about what he was going to say next to counter, but actually listened. It developed an incredible relationship in where he became a mentor on education because I learned so much from him. You know, out in my world, when I was in the Senate, I had 1/4 of all the Senate districts, or all the school districts in my Senate district. 1/4 of all of the school districts in the state were in my Senate district. And so we would have those conversations about schools that would only have 3 graduating seniors that year. And then we talked about how my son drove through 2 other school districts to go to the school that best fit him. and drive 40 miles every day to go to school. And that's what he was talking about. I also enjoyed listening to him speak in the well. And as you know, many of you remember, when I'd come to the well, it was, oh my, Sonnenberg's going to the well. When Keith went to the well, it was, oh my, Senator King is going to the well. We should learn and listen from him. I enjoyed those times learning from him, not only with regard to education, but as a statesman, as someone that could relate with no matter what the subject was, someone that actually cared about you. When you had a conversation with Senator King, you were the most important person in the room with him. And he would make you feel that way. We should all learn from his leadership. And I will tell you, President Cadman, or the president from Colorado Springs, I would have much more enjoyed President King because he wouldn't have come to me and said, the chairman of the Ag Committee will be voting for this bill, whoever that chairman might be in the future. He was a leader that you would want to pattern your life after. With God first, family a priority, those things that made this country great. One of the other things that I remember having from our first conversation when he told me about his history, I didn't realize it, but I bought a waterbed from that guy after I got married. Didn't know it, but that was one of the things that we had the conversation. He would listen to you, talk to you, get more out of you, make you a better person. There are so many more things I could talk about with Senator King. But I know there's several others here. I just want to leave you with, he's the kind of guy that you would always want to follow. That was always a role model. Someone that you could be proud to follow in his footsteps, to do what he does and act the way he did. An incredible man that truly will be missed, but his legacy on education and his leadership as a spokesperson will live on forever. Thank you, Mr. President.
Representative Piccioni.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the things, I served with Representative King for 2 terms in the House. My first 2 terms, my first exposure to politics. My first day in this Capitol was new legislator orientation day. And I was looking at everything. Is this your first day in the Capitol? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I didn't come from a history of anything politically. I came into politics a little bit on a whim, but I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed serving with Representative King. We had shared values. We participated in the legislators' Bible study. I think I was the only Democrat at the time. I know there's many more now, but back then, in fact, I don't even know if you still have that, if you still meet. It's a legislators' Bible study. We served on the Education Committee together. We were former coaches of basketball, and we both loved our families. He was a stalwart for education. He leaves a tremendous legacy, as you've heard, especially around what I'm doing now as the director of the Department of Higher Ed, early colleges, charter schools, and COF. I looked at the bill. I went back and looked at the bill. It was Senate Bill 04-189. I looked up the bill this morning, and I realized that I didn't vote for it. But no Democrats voted for it in the House or the Senate, and it was passed during a time when we had the majority in both chambers. So how did he get that bill passed? I don't know, but he did it. He always did, as you know. We had our share of battles, but I can't remember one. I can't remember one of the battles. Keith always treated me with kindness and with decency. When I was appointed to lead the Department of Higher Education, one of the first to come lobby me was Keith King. I received that as a show of professional affection and respect, and he lobbied me very well. And it was like reconnecting with a former teammate. It was a great meeting. I hadn't seen him in so long, and he was well into his illness at the time, but he came, made that effort to come see me in my office. It feels like just moments ago that we served here. None of us know the time or the hour of our passing, so let us do well by doing good now. Would that each of us might have a legacy of laws, faith, relationships. In Galatians it says, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. I think Senator King exhibited all of the fruit of the Spirit, and would that we would too. Thank you.
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Mr. President. I knew Keith King for about 30 years, almost as long as I've known Senator Gardner and Senator Liston, about as long as I've known President Cadman. I too bought a waterbed from Keith at one point down there in Colorado Springs. He was a successful businessman. I tell you, the jingle for Waterbed Palace still is in my head. Waterbed Palace, well, you'll sleep like a king. That's it, right? Yeah. So he was a very, very good man. I really got to know Keith when early in my legislative career, I came to the House in 1995, and I decided to take on the issue on behalf of the charter schools on the funding front. And I see Julie Pellegrin in the back of the room, and I believe you were the drafter on this bill, were you not? A lot of bruises from that one. Have they gone away by now? But I carried a bill to increase the per pupil operating revenue for charter schools from what was then 80% to 95%. And this is where I first met Keith when I was working on this bill. Of course, he supported that. I worked very hard. I got the bill passed. A quick side story. Governor Romer was the governor, and he has told me he had some concerns, asked me to come down and meet with him about it, and he said, well, you know, if you'd want to go to somewhere between 85 or 90, I could go along with it, and here I am, a freshman representative, thinking I know better, and it's like, no, 95 is fair. They can keep 5% for administration, and that's it. And I passed the bill, and Governor Romer vetoed it. That's the way it works when you don't get what you can at a certain point. But we had a different governor a couple of years later, and I did pass it. But when I first I met Keith in that process. I had the privilege of speaking, Sandy and I were talking about this morning, at one of his earliest campaign events, speaking on his behalf. His district was Southwest Colorado Springs, my district was Northeast Colorado Springs. And it might have even been his campaign announcement, neither one of us could recall for sure. But he came to the legislature, and you knew immediately how good he was and how strong of a legislator that he was going to be. In his first term, I was the majority leader, and Russell George was the Speaker of the House. Russell George was from Rifle. He had a bill that would have taken some funds and appropriated them in a more favorable way to the Western Slope than a lot of people thought. But he was the Speaker, and the bill had passed second reading. Keith King decided to take the lead against the Speaker, and he went in, he worked on the floor, he worked all weekend calling folks, and he killed Speaker George's bill on third reading. How many freshmen do that? So he was very, very effective. I remember later on, when I was Speaker, the transportation bill, the trans bonds bill, was quite the contentious bill, going up literally to the end to midnight on the last night of the session. And Representative Fairbank, who's in the back of the room, was the sponsor of that bill. And Keith King, I put on the conference committee as well, because I knew he understood complicated numbers, big numbers. Well, I found out we're waiting for this conference committee to get back late in the evening, and I hear I'm sitting in my office, and my assistant comes in and says, "You better go upstairs. There's a shouting match going on in the rotunda between the governor and Representatives Fairbank and King." And I went up there, and the governor was pretty upset looking, and we talked. They weren't crazy about signing this conference committee report, and we needed both of them to sign it. And so we talked about solutions and how we could work this out. Again, at this time, it's about 11:30, the last night of session. I understand Keith came down later and told Senator President now, but then Representative Cadman, the governor said some very, very bad words to me, very bad. But Keith was good. He was a team player. He knew the governor wanted this bill. It was essential to his what he wanted to do, something he wanted to campaign on. And Keith and Rob, Representative Fairbank, signed that conference committee report as I asked them to. They didn't vote for the bill, but they signed that conference committee report, and it ultimately passed, and that's why we had the T-Rex project that widened the interstates through Denver. So I knew Keith was going to be something special early on. He demonstrated throughout his career. Carrying the School Finance Act, I believe I only did it once, and I agree with what was said previously. I would not want to do it a second time. That was quite a fight. And it's quite mentally, it's difficult, as Julie can tell you too. So he was a leader. He was recognized by his colleagues that way. He was elected as Assistant Majority Leader in his second term. That's the term that I was Speaker. And then he got elected to Majority Leader, and he did a great job there. And had it not been for a shift in the political winds, he would have been the Speaker of the House, without question. He definitely had the support. So he was, that's the political stuff. Aside from that, I just want to say he was just one of the kindest people I've ever known. Not just kind, but genuine. He cared about people. He cared about his colleagues, both sides of the aisle. The parties didn't matter. He was just a very good man. I'll say this. I didn't keep up with Keith in the last years. And I can say that for most of my colleagues. And that's a shame. I really wish I had, because he was such a delightful man. And that's one thing I'll leave with you all. When you leave here, you think you'll know each other forever and all that, but with few exceptions, you'll hardly see each other again. So just remember, it's probably better to keep in touch, and we can all probably do a little better job of that. But to the King family, Sandy and the boys, I am just so sorry for your loss. And the state of Colorado has lost such a wonderful man, and you're in our thoughts and prayers, and God bless you all. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Grantham.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is it's an honor to be here and to be able to speak in memory of Keith and Senator King, the Amendment King. I am so glad that the memorial mentioned that, the Amendment King. I knew Keith, I was just thinking the other day, actually a couple months ago when we first got news, actually went back and listened to our farewell when Keith stood here in this well, when he sat here, and when we said goodbye, as he is term limited. Well, he's not term limited, but other circumstances, as President Cadman pointed out. But listening to the honors being given to him that day, and just the remembrances of his time here in this building, in the House, and here in this chamber. And I think of today and the honor and privilege, the awful privilege and the wonderful privilege that we have of doing this. We lost a giant amongst us. But we also, many of us got to serve with that giant amongst us. And what a privilege it was to know this man. I was thinking, or even work for this man, as there were a couple in this room that I know served on staff in our Republican offices back in 11 and 12 and prior that have gone on to bigger and better things now. But what a privilege we had to serve with this good man. I have many remembrances over the course of time. I honestly thought I had probably at least another hour or two to sit here and think about things to say, because I thought President Cadman was going to tell all of his stories, and he would probably still be up here if he was telling those stories. And the same thing, Speaker Dean, known him such a long time and had such great remembrances of him that we've gotten to share over the years, and listening to them tell the stories that I did not get to experience, but believed every word, just because when you know this man and how wonderful he was and what a great person he was, way before he became a great legislator and a great senator. This was just a great man, and it was a privilege to know him. I was thinking, as I actually went back and listened to that, as I said, the farewells that we gave him back in 2012. And one of the things that was brought to mind was he was actually one of my representatives down in Fremont County when he served House District 21 at the time. It took in parts of El Paso County and about, I think, 5 precincts down in Fremont County. And I think that was yours as well. I remember him coming down to Fremont County quite often, speaking down there at meetings, and him being eloquent about his love and admiration for refs C and D, right? Yeah, right. No, he had no great things to say about those two things, but he was an educator. He came down in that fashion and educated us on the impact of those referendums, and in the way that only Keith King could do that, and helping the layman to understand what those meant to the state, what they meant to us as individuals, and what they meant to his constituents in his district. I knew him a lot longer than he probably knew me, because I was just a face in the crowd for many years. But he came down and he had that concern for us that he would educate us. And then I became part of this chamber, and I got to learn who this man was as a colleague. There was one time, and I'm trying to remember which year, if it was 11 or 12, President Cadman, but I think it was 11, you and I were serving as the members on the State Affairs Committee. And Senator King and Senator Spence had a bill that got, I don't know what reason they would have to put an education bill in State Affairs, but it was. And it was one of those learning moments, one of those teachable moments for a freshman, a rookie. And, I'm thinking, I know everything there is to know, and I'm asking certain questions, and questions that weren't appreciated by Senator King. And I didn't know this at the time, but afterwards I learned of the good senator's feelings over my approach on his bill. And to make a long story short, if that's possible at this point, the freshman in this story was pretty scared, actually, of his future legislative endeavors, because Senator King had pretty much given me the mark, I felt. That wasn't true. I mean, after a while and understanding and talking with the man and the freshman learning a little bit better about how to approach things in this body in order to get things done and how to work with people, again, the educator came out and the educator educated me about how things work in this building. And I'll never forget him for that. Very much appreciated. There's so many things I wanted to talk about, but I probably want to just focus lastly on this idea of him being the Amendment King. Because even when we were doing our farewells on that last day in May of 2012, Senator King, the Amendment King, actually had amendments drafted for his farewell. It was a 6-section amendment, and he went through it section by section, giving the amendments to his own goodbyes. If you get a chance, you just got to go listen to the audio of it, and it's fantastic. One of the things, if you do get the chance to do that, and because these chairs are close enough to the mic, after everybody comes up here, and honestly, especially after President Cadman talks and shares certain stories, one of the things that is so distinctive about certain individuals in this chamber that have served here over time, and I think of 2 individuals in particular, one of them sitting right back here, Senator Sonnenberg, it's their laughs. You walk through these halls and you hear Senator Sonnenberg laugh and you know exactly who's in the building. Same thing with Senator King. You knew his laugh and that deep bass voice and that laugh. It's that deep bass voice that you would hear from this well when a bill is being presented and he would sing the bill title in his bass voice. And he would come and sing with that big, deep bass voice when the Senate choir would come up here and sing Happy Birthday. I will miss that voice. And I'll miss the amendments because he was the Amendment King. I should have done this, President Cadman. I should have jumped up ahead of you because I wanted to, I was thinking I needed this to be something that everybody forgot because everybody else spoke after me. But since Speaker Dean got to sing at the well, this is the little ditty that I did when we said our farewells to the Amendment King. Hold school finance, hold the budget. One more amendment surely cometh. That bill you hold, there's no chance you'll have it your way. Committee, seconds, then third reading. Sponsors quake when you start speaking. That bill you hold, you'll never have it your way. Have it your way, have it your way, have it your way, Amendment King.
The Senate will come back to order. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. While we were hearing some of these other folks speak, former Representative Ken Summers, who was a friend of Keith King, sent a text, and I think it summarizes the circumstance very, very well from Ken Summers. Ken says, Scripture says of David, quote, he was successful in all he did because the Lord was with him. And Ken says, this reminds me of Keith And I think that is true for all of us. That reminds us of Keith. Mr. President, I renew my motion for the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 003 and request a roll call vote.
The motion is the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 3. Will the clerk please poll the members?
Senators Baisley. Baisley is excused. Bridges. Bridges, aye. Buckner. Buckner, aye. Coleman. Coleman, aye. Senator Cutter is excused. Danielson. Danielson, aye. Exum. Exum, aye. Fields. Fields, aye. Gardner. Gardner, aye. Janal. Janal, aye. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Hanson. Hanson, aye. Henriksen. Henriksen, aye. Huckes Lewis. Huckes Lewis, aye. Kirkmeyer. Kirkmeyer, aye. Kolker. Kolker, aye. Liston. Liston, aye. Lundin.
Aye.
Lundin, aye. Marchman. Marchman, aye. Michelson Janae. Michelson Janae, aye. Mullica. Mullica, aye. Pelton B. Pelton B, aye. Senator Pelton R is excused. Priola. Priola, aye. Rich. Rich, aye. Roberts. Roberts, aye. Rodriguez. Rodriguez, aye. Simpson. Simpson, aye. Smallwood. Smallwood, aye. Sullivan. Sullivan, aye. Van Winkle. Van Winkle, aye. Will. Will, aye. Winter. Winter, aye. Zenzinger. Zenzinger, aye. Senator Sonnenberg. Sonnenberg, aye. President Grantham. President Grantham, aye. President Cadman. President Cadman, aye. Mr. President.
Aye.
Mr. President, aye.
With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, Senate Joint Memorial 3 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. We request that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors of the bill and that we observe a moment of silence and that the chimes be rung.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors, and the Senate will now observe a moment of silence, and the chimes will be rung in memory of Senator King. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please be seated. We want to take a moment to recognize Senator King's family members attending this morning. Of course, Sandy King, his wonderful wife, his son Brandon and his family, Sarah King, daughter-in-law, Eliana King, granddaughter, Hudson King, grandson, Colleen Combs, his sister, and Christopher Combs, his great-nephew. We thank you all for being here, and on behalf of the family, I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you all for being with us this morning and allowing us to be a small part of honoring Senator King's legacy and life. It's terrific to have so many of you here this morning to help us do that. Thank you to the former members for being here and sharing words of the late senator. The Senate will now stand in a brief recess to greet all of our guests.
Senate will come back to order. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the balance of the consideration of memorials calendar lay over until April 22nd.
The motion is to lay over the balance of consideration of memorials calendar to Monday, April 22nd. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the balance of consideration of memorials will lay over until Monday, 4/22. Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the titles of all the bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1305 by Representatives Lindstedt and Lukens and Senators Baisley, Buckner, and Michelson-Janay.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege.
Moment of personal privilege. The motion is to proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order for moment of personal privilege. Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we have the 4A high school state girls basketball champions with us today. If they want to stand up back in the corner here. This is Riverdale Ridge High School. They're the Ravens. They're the 4A state champions. They also have the honor of having Miss Colorado basketball, Brianna Crittenden, on their team. This is the first championship for the school ever. So join me in welcoming Riverdale Ridge girls basketball team along with Coach Jones. Thank you for being here, ladies. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Now, third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Would the clerk please read the title of all the bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1305 by Representatives Lindstedt and Lukens and Senators Baisley and Michelson-Janay concerning changes to programs to benefit students who earn post-secondary course credit while enrolled in high school. House Bill 1285 by Representative Hamrick and Senators Marchman and Gardner concerning preventing bullying in public schools based on student physical appearance. House Bill 1254 by Representative Hamrick and Bradley and Senator Smallwood concerning the continuation of the regulation of non-transplant tissue banks and in connection therewith implementing recommendations contained in the 2023 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. House Bill 1354 by Representatives Herod and Duran and Senator Janal concerning requiring pet care facilities to provide notification of an infectious disease outbreak. House Bill 1002 by Representatives Sirota and Martinez and Senators Marchman and Rich concerning the enactment of the Social Work Licensure Compact and in connection therewith making an appropriation. House Bill 1234 by Representatives Morrow and Catlin and Senators Roberts and Hansen concerning the continuation of high-cost support mechanism funding for rural telecommunications providers and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations in the 2023 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. House Bill 1272 by Representatives Velasco and Soper, Senator Exum, concerning the continuation of the Colorado Fire Commission in accordance with the recommendation in the Department of Regulatory Agencies 2023 Sunset Report in connection therewith making an appropriation. House Bill 1275 by Representatives Catlin and Morrow and Senator Simpson, concerning the continuation of the Underfunded Courthouse Facility Cash Fund Commission and in connection therewith implementing the recommendation in the Department of Regulatory Agencies 2023 Sunset Report. Senate Bill 179 by Senators Simpson and Henriksen and Representatives Catlin and Story, concerning the establishment of a floodplain management program for development in connection therewith making an appropriation. Senate Bill 183 by Senators Simpson and Hagas Lewis and Representatives Martinez and Velasco concerning the distraint sale of a mobile home to collect delinquent property taxes and in connection therewith temporarily suspending the distraint sale of mobile homes, creating a task force on mobile home ownership and taxation, and making an appropriation.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the bills on third reading of bills, final passage consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1305, House Bill 1285, House Bill 1254, House Bill 1354, House Bill 1002, House Bill 1234, House Bill 1272, House Bill 1275, Senate Bill 179, and Senate Bill 183.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the passage of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes? Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be a no on House Bill 1354.
Senator Rich will be a no on House Bill 1354. Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I too want to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1354.
Senator Will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1354. Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1285, 1354, and 1234.
Senator Van Winkle will be a no vote on 1354, 1234, and 1285. Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be a no vote on House Bill 1305, House Bill 1285, and House Bill 1272.
That last one was 1272. Senator Pelton B. will be recorded as a no vote on 1272, 1285, and 1305. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that I be recorded as a no vote on 1285 and 1354.
Minority Leader will be recorded as a no vote on 1285 and 1354. With a vote of 31 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1305 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Winter, Henriksen, Buckner, Coker, Janal, Zinzinger, Marchman, Bridges, Priola, Buckner, if I didn't call you already, I think I called you already, Jaquez Lewis, Exum, Gonzalez, Mullica, Rich, Will. Okay. With a vote of 29 ayes, 3 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1285 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Exum, Mullica, Roberts, Winter, Fields, Priola, Buckner, Michelson Janae, Jaquez Lewis, Sullivan, Bridges, Zinzinger, Janal, Coker. Good to go. With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1254 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Roberts, Gardner, Janal, Priola, Mr. Minority Leader, Kirkmeyer. Good to go. With a vote of 28 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1354 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Buckner, Priola, Michelson Janae, Jaquez Lewis, Henriksen, Winter, with a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1002 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Buckner, Michelson Janae, Priola, Jaquez Lewis, Henriksen, Bridges, Winter, Fields, Mr. Majority Leader, Coker, Gonzalez, Janal, Zinzinger, Smallwood, Exum, Roberts, Gardner, with a vote of 31 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1234 is passed. Co-sponsors, Bridges, Priola, Michelson Janae, Exum, Buckner, with a vote of 31 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1272 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Michelson Janae, Priola, Sullivan, Jaquez Lewis, Bridges, Buckner, Winter, Janal, Mullica, Roberts. With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, House Bill 1275 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Bridges, Winter, Priola, Jaquez Lewis, Exum, Roberts, Gardner, Mr. Minority Leader, Kirkmeyer, Gonzalez, Buckner, with a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, Senate Bill 179 is passed. Co-sponsors, Priola, Michelson Janae, Bridges, Marchman, Exum, Liston, with a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, Senate Bill 183 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Priola, Michelson Janae, Rodriguez, Mr. Majority Leader, Gonzalez, Gardner, Mullica, Exum, Will, Buckner, Coker. Third reading of bills, final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1318?
House Bill 1318 by Representative Ortiz and Senator Danielson concerning reasonable modifications to rental premises for an individual with a disability.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1318 on third reading and final passage.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1318. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Rich, Pelton B., Will, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Mr. Minority Leader. With a vote of 25 ayes, 7 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, House Bill 1318 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Marchman, Michelson Janae, Buckner, Jaquez Lewis, Sullivan, Henriksen, Winter, Colker, Exum. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 173?
Senate Bill 173 by Senators Robertson Gardner and Representative Soper and Tatone concerning the regulation of persons providing mortuary sign services and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 173 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 173. Are there any no votes? Oh, Senator Van Winkle. Smallwood. With a vote of 30 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, Senate Bill 173 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Bridges, Buckner, Michelson Janae, Priola, Jaquez Lewis, Henriksen, Fields, Marchman, Zenzinger, Winter, Danielson, Janal, Mr. Majority Leader, Colker, Exum, Mullica. Please add the President. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills. And Senator Zenzinger will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 60 until May the 9th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 60 until May 9th. Is there any discussion? Minority Leader Lundin.
I think maybe I don't need to speak after all.
Fantastic. Seeing no discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of the motion to lay over Senate Bill 60 until May 9th. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over until May 9th. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 90 until Wednesday, April the 17th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 90 until April 17th. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over until April 17th. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1429 until May the 9th.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is to lay over House Bill 1429 until May 9th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Killing
no.
all the Kirkmeyer bills.
The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over until May 9th. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1057 until Wednesday, April the 17th.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is to lay over House Bill 1057 until April 17th. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The aye has it, and the bill will be laid over. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1293?
House Bill 1293 by Representative Clifford and Senator Colker concerning voluntary payroll deductions for state employees.
Senator Colker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1293.
To the bill. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1293, departmental bill to allow employees in the state personnel system that are currently covered under the State Employee Group Benefits Act to participate in group benefit plans that include any group benefit coverages contracted for and administered by the state personnel director. Such group benefit coverages include, but are not limited to, medical, dental, life, and disability benefits. This bill expands that definition for voluntary and flexible benefits, and we do have some amendments. And I have First Amendment.
Senator Colker. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L002?
L002,
Senator
House Bill.
Colker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment just amends page 2, line 17, strikes benefits and substitutes products and inserts services to make sure it's, we're talking about certain products and services. We're thinking of things like pet insurance, group health, or group life and group homeowner and auto insurance, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we heard this bill in committee here just about 10 days ago, a week ago, and appreciate the sponsor bringing this bill and this amendment. I think it probably makes sense. And I can appreciate the fact that there are certain other deductions other than, life insurance and some of the other standard deductions that we might see on our salaries and so forth. And so I can want to thank the good senator from Centennial, that's what I thought. The good senator from Centennial for bringing this other additional amendment. So I would urge an aye vote on this amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rise in support of Amendment 2. I think Amendment 2 does a good job in narrowing exactly which services, which voluntary benefits would potentially fall under House Bill 1293, and would encourage an aye vote on the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion. Seeing no further discussion on Amendment L002, the motion is for the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, members, like I said, we heard this bill here from Senator Colker, House Bill 1293, in business, labor, and technology. It does make good sense, and I did speak to the senator a little bit. I kind of raised the question. I can appreciate the fact that we would have deductions for different types of insurance and things that's already been discussed. But one thing that I did speak to him about, we brought it up in committee a little bit, was would this type of bill or legislation be subject to making deductions for political entities, political candidates, small donor committees, PACs, things like that? Because I don't think that that's really within the scope of the bill. And I've spoken to the good senator from Centennial, and he agrees with that. So with that in mind, I would like to move L001.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L001?
L001, amendment reading gross
Senator
bill, page
Liston.
2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, what L00...
Can you move the amendment one more
did.
time? It had not been
I
read
did. I'll
yet.
move it again. I move L001 to House Bill 1293, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. To the amendment.
Very good. Members, what this does, L001, is basically it states that under this piece of legislation as defined in Article 45 of Title I, that deductions will not be made or not be allowed for candidate committees, political parties, small donor committees, small scale issue committees, and other political entities. I think we want to, it's the intent of this, it's meant to be a friendly amendment. I think the sponsor agrees. So with that, I would urge an aye vote on Amendment L001 to House Bill 1293.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do consider this a friendly amendment, and I encourage an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L001. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Amendment L001 is adopted. Is there any further discussion? We will take a senatorial 5. Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have an amendment coming, and I do know some of my colleagues do want to speak on this, so I'd like to go forward with just some comments on the bill. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Kolker. So, colleagues, I come at House Bill 1293 with maybe a little bit different perspective. So I like the concept. Look, I appreciate the amendments that the good senator already adopted, and look forward to conversation around the third amendment. So here's how I look at this: is what we're dealing with is employee benefits for state employees, state of Colorado, and I don't know about you, but I get plenty of emails, voicemails, texts, people stopping me, concerned about services that they are seeking from state employees. Fill in the blank, whichever department, division we might be working with. So I always wonder, what are we doing as one of the bodies that at least tangentially holds the purse strings when it comes to wages, fringe benefits, retirement plan benefits for those state employees. What are we doing as contributors to the decision-making around those state employees to make sure that the state of Colorado is and remains an employer of choice? Now, I can imagine, don't know that I've heard this directly, but I can imagine an argument being, oh, well, this is taxpayer money. Do we really want to be spending it here, there, on all these wages, all these benefits that we're providing to state employees? And again, I come at it with a little bit different angle, meaning if you're not willing to pay reasonable wages, if you're not willing to offer at-market benefits or better benefits, then somebody please explain to me exactly how you acquire the kind of talent that would be needed to, let me give you an example, to work at the office of the state auditor. How many of you would like high-quality employees at the office of the state auditor? I know I would. A lot of hands going up. So colleagues, when the hands are going up, what are we doing as an employer to make sure that we are able to attract and retain the kind of excellent talent that is needed at a place like the Office of State Auditor? If you're going to pay below market wages, offer below market benefits, my belief is you're going to get low quality employees, low quality workers. Only those folks that don't have other options, only those folks that don't have other alternatives. So when I see a bill like House Bill 1293, particularly if all of the amendments are adopted, this is a very common sense step, in my opinion, to be able to say, look, we're offering the types of benefits that you would typically see when you are applying for a job. We have medical insurance, we have dental insurance, we have vision insurance, we have a retirement plan or a pension program, or a 401k plan, or a 457 plan. But in this market, especially in a very competitive job market like Colorado historically has been, workers, in my opinion, are looking for more. And purchasing some additional sorts of products and services, which the senator already adopted an amendment that narrows the language, additional products and services that a worker can purchase in a very convenient way, probably at group rates, probably with some kind of, I would say, lucrative eligibility type requirements that a lot of these products have. When somebody's looking for something, and people can make fun of this all they want, when people are looking for things like pet insurance, I know more than one person in this chamber whose pet is like their best friend, right? Probably nearly as important to them as any other family member on two legs. So if somebody wants to purchase, we'll just use that as an example, briefly, succinctly, as is my style, is
pet insurance is something that you can either go out on your own and look for, meaning, okay, first of all, who sells pet insurance? So what, I'm gonna go to Google or go to the internet and search who sells these products. Okay, now let's say I found 5, 10 different product sources. Which ones are reputable? Which ones have been doing this a long time? Which ones have been vetted in some way? So that's part of it. Step 2, how are the benefits within that pet insurance program? Are they competitive compared to the other pet insurance company vendors out there? And then lastly, rates. From a pricing perspective, how competitive are the rates? And I would say you can throw in a third, how do I pay for it? Meaning, is this something I have to write a big annual check for or give my credit card number away? Or colleagues, alternatively, you can rely on your employer. Somebody like the state of Colorado with tens of thousands of employees, where there is a team handling human resources at the state of Colorado that will, I can pretty much promise you this, that will vet those vendors for you. There's probably an RFP process. There's a staff of people going through that RFP process to make sure that at least step 1 is taken care of. And a worker at the state of Colorado can reasonably assume that the company that they're going to purchase, in this case, pet insurance from, has been vetted and is probably a really good vendor. Benefits themselves. What's the deductibles? What's the maximums? What's covered? What's not covered? When a worker can rely on their employer, particularly an employer who is making the decision, again, for tens of thousands of people, potentially, you can be reasonably sure that through that RFP process, the benefits are going to be vetted. And then price. You can be reasonably assured that it's going to be a competitive benefit. And for most of these colleagues, if you look, this carries no fiscal note, right? This is simply authorizing the state, if they want to offer more benefits that by and large are going to be paid for completely by the worker. Not necessarily, but by and large completely by the worker, that they're authorized to be able to do so. And you can pay for these things conveniently through payroll deduction. So again, looking forward to seeing the last piece of this to make sure that we're not looking at any sort of fiscal impacts. But when we're talking about authorizing the state of Colorado to go out and look at the types of things that a worker, that I know, this is one thing that I do know. I don't have a lot of marketable skills, but this is definitely one of them. I know that workers are asking for things like cancer insurance. Anybody ever seen an Aflac commercial? I bet nobody here has seen an Aflac commercial, right? Why? Workers ask for that. Workers ask for cancer insurance. Workers ask for accident insurance. They ask for critical illness insurance. They ask for pet insurance, and they ask for services that they would like to be able to purchase, things like identity theft protection. It's not really a product. To me, it's more of a service, but it comes with a service fee, it comes with a cost. And you can either go out and buy one of those services on your own, hope that the vendor is solid and reputable, hope that the benefits are good, hope that the pricing is good, or a worker can rely on their employer to go, again, through that vetting process. And the state of Colorado, I'm quite confident, has a team of people that do exactly that. So I think I share, or at least used to share, my colleague's concern around, how broad can this get? The amendments seem to address that. How expensive can this get? I think there'll be another amendment to address that. But the core principle in House Bill 1293 is something that I think is critically important if you think it's important for the state to be able to attract and retain workers competing against the largest employers in our state. And there are plenty of them that have tens of thousands of employers, right? We don't live in a vacuum. I want great people working for the state of Colorado, and anything that we can do that, again, comes with
in this case, no appropriation that would allow that flexibility for the folks making these decisions at the state is something that I support. Look forward to seeing the last amendment, but right now I would ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1293.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All these tall people. Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 24-1293 has some good ideas in it. I mean, it speaks to, currently we have state employees who are able to participate in group benefit plans that are contracted for or administered by the state. That's great. The bill seeks to open up more benefits to state employees. Absolutely, we need that. This bill would be beneficial for state employees, and it would include that there would be additional voluntary benefits that they could pay for. And all that is great, especially when you think about the things that we've been through with regard to the budget. I mean, we have departments like the Department of Corrections and the Department of Human Services who we are having to do a lot of additional, and I'm talking millions of dollars to not just retain, but to also bring in new workforce. We have severe workforce shortages, as my JBC colleagues know, in those departments. So I'm not opposed to looking at voluntary payroll and having voluntary payroll deductions. That's common in the private sector. And basically it would help with more qualified employees by being more competitive with pay and benefits. That's great. It's this partial sentence on page 2, and it starts on 17, and it says, basically it says the employee's salary to pay for such benefits and for which, if available, it's those words that really, thank you, that really bring concern to me, because it says, if available, the employee's contribution may be matched by a state contribution. Hello, there should have been an appropriation of some sort, or at least some recognition of how darn expensive this could be. Because I don't know if you all understand it, but there are 65,062 FTE employees in the state. 65,062 employees in the state of Colorado. And this is how we handled it in the fiscal note. Offering additional voluntary benefits plans may increase workload in the Department of Personnel and Administration if the department determines these plans will help retain state employees. First of all, I don't even understand that sentence. Well, I do understand it. I don't understand how it goes together. There should have been a period in here, or it should have been done a little bit differently. But yes, offering additional voluntary benefits may increase the workload. Appreciate the Department of Personnel and Administration saying, look, we're going to try and help out the issues here as well and make a determination, see if we can get some voluntary benefit plans that, again, they're voluntary. It's this part where it says the department determines that these plans will help retain state employees. Okay, I guess that's something maybe we all need to know a little bit more about. But then it says, the workload is expected to be minimal and no change in appropriations is required. It's this last sentence here underneath state expenditures in the fiscal note. If the state offers such benefits and provides a match, I understand it's a may match at this point, but if the state provides a match, any increase in state expenditures will be addressed through the annual budget process. Well, of course they will be. Of course they will be addressed through the annual budget process. But at that point, we're kind of too late. And I can't tell you the number of bills that pass through here that say things like this, well, we'll address it in the annual budget process. Or we're going to fund that with gifts, grants, and donations. Those are some pretty key words, at least from my perspective as a Joint Budget Committee member, that's like, whoa, there needs to be more done here before we start trying to address it in an annual budget process. We need to have an understanding of the scope of the cost that could be associated with, if available, the state, if available, the employee's contribution may be matched by a state contribution. That will be a huge impact on the budget, because remember, 65,062 employees in the state of Colorado. What if they all take advantage of the voluntary benefits? It's not very fiscally conservative or fiscally prudent to just let this go by. So that is why I have an amendment. And Madam Chair, I would,
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L004?
L004, amendment gross bill, page 2, line 19, after contribution, add no state contribution match is effective until or unless the director has completed a fiscal analysis of the cost and the outcome of any such voluntary
Senator
benefit.
Kirkmeyer,
thank you, Madam Chair. I move L004.
to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to the amendment L004, and what this does is it provides language that would be inserted on page 2. After we have the, if available, the employee's contribution may be matched by a state contribution, then we would put into place, we would put into the bill, no state contribution match is effective and until or unless the director has completed a fiscal analysis of the cost. That would be fiscally prudent. And the outcome. They have to do an analysis of the outcome of any such voluntary benefit. No best guesses. Those best guesses end up costing us a lot of money. And by a lot, I mean millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. I want you to just go back and look at some of the things that we've done with regard to trying to increase salaries and benefits. And by benefits, I mean like we've been doing housing for employees. So it would say analysis of the cost and also analysis of the outcome of any such voluntary benefit, which includes a determination by the department of the number of potential state employees retained as a result of offering the benefit. And that language is consistent with what the state put into under state expenditures that said any increase in state expenditures will be addressed through the annual budget, but also that they have plans to help retain state employees. I think that's extremely important. We do need to retain state employees. We do have a workforce shortage. Offering additional benefits is a good idea to assist with our workforce shortage, but at the same time, we need to be fiscally prudent and fiscally responsible and have an idea of what these kind of costs are before they just come on into the budget committee and say, oh, we need a few $100 million now because of 1293, and nobody really thought it all the way through. So again, all I'm asking for this is that we would do a fiscal analysis of the cost, and that we also would have some analysis of the outcome of any such voluntary benefit, so that we would know the number of employees that would be retained. That would be an important number for us to have at the Joint Budget Committee. So members, I ask for an aye vote of for L004 for that amendment. And before I get done, I just also want to say to the sponsor, thank you. I greatly appreciate you giving me some grace here and allowing the opportunity for this amendment to come forward and working with us and with the department to make sure that they have an understanding. Yes, I heart. I just really appreciate it. I appreciate your grace, and thank you for allowing me to have the time to get this amendment in place. And I apologize that I didn't get it to you sooner. Thank you. With that, I ask for an aye vote for L004.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L004? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Majority Leader. So I rise in support of Amendment 4. Amendment 4 doesn't harm the bill in any way. I think it makes House Bill 1293 sort of ironclad as far as any concerns that folks could have from a fiscal perspective. So again, we already talked about the fact that these sorts of voluntary benefit programs, A, they're popular, B, workers really like them, appreciate it, C, having an organization like the state of Colorado being able to help vet the carriers, the benefits, the pricing, D being able to have the benefits themselves, whether they're products or services, paid for on a payroll deduction basis, convenient for the worker, very, I think, sought after as well. And then the last piece would be if anybody had concerns about this being some sort of fiscal end around where now there's going to be additional costs to the state of Colorado, additional budget perspectives, Amendment 4 will pretty much address all of that. Amendment 4, I would ask for an aye vote. Amendment 4 takes House Bill 1293 from a very good bill to an excellent bill. Would ask for both an aye vote on the amendment and the bill.
Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do agree too. the point behind this is to be fiscally responsible. Took the words out of my mouth about making sure it's not an end around. We are making it tighter. There is, I believe, with these kind of voluntary benefits, an ability with the size of the employees here in the state, an opportunity to really reduce costs for voluntary benefits or voluntary products like this. So appreciate the amendment, and I do consider it a friendly amendment. Urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1293. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1244?
House Bill 1244 by Representatives Winter T. and Snyder and Senators Michaels and Janae and Gardner concerning the circumstances under which an autopsy report prepared in connection with the death of a minor may be released to certain parties.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1244 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the report.
Thank you. Members, in Judiciary, we took a look at this bill. This bill is about what information will be releasable when an autopsy is performed on a minor. And the cases involve, frankly, homicides, suicides, drug overdoses, and so forth. And there have been, at least in my community, and one very high-profile case, the release of the autopsy led to some, certainly not all by any means, but some of the news media publishing very horrific details that were unnecessary and very disturbing to the family and the community and so forth. But there's a tension here in this bill between transparency and accountability and privacy with respect to minors. So we believe we've got the right balance, but we did some refinement in Judiciary. One was to make the name of the minor part of a summary that doesn't contain all of the, again, the horrific details, but just more the factual circumstances, and also creating a process for when the media, or others for that matter, believe that the interest in release and public interest substantially outweighs the privacy interest, and that would go to court. This is a refinement. This Judiciary Committee action is a refinement of that process. And I would just note that the bill generally requires that for minors in custody, true custody of the state, those autopsies will be releasable. We ask for an aye vote on the Judiciary Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L015?
L015, amend Judiciary Committee report. dated
Senator
April 10.
Gardner.
Thank you. I move L015. Members, L015, again, is further refinement to this process that the news media or other member of the public could take if there was a belief that the interest and release of the autopsy report substantially outweighed the privacy interest. Getting that process right took some thought, and the question really was, besides the coroner, who is the custodian of the record, who else should be notified, and our belief was the next of kin, but we needed to define that further. That's what L015 does, and we ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L15? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L15. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the bill. Senator Michelson Cheney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My co-prime, Senator Gardner, did a really, the senator from Colorado Springs.
The best senator.
The best senator from the Colorado Springs. Did an amazing job telling you about the bill. I did want to point out that it came out unanimous in committee, and we hope we will have your unanimous support on the floor.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you. And I thank the senator from Commerce City for being a co-prime sponsor. It's always a privilege and an honor to be a co-prime with her, and we ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, we do have discussions. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't really know much about this bill. Kind of came in from left field until I got 3 emails yesterday morning, and I was sitting in the backyard going through my emails and listening to and reading what they were and trying to figure out how I was going to respond from them. And one of them was from a mother of Riley Whitlaw, and I met this mother. She gave me one of these wristbands, and I've had it on since I met her. And I guess I've just got a couple of questions. I see how the vote was over in the House. It was overwhelmingly supportive, and in the committee it was overwhelmingly supportive. All I can speak to is my personal experiences with autopsies and coroners and things being released to the press. And I guess on the night of July 20th at 8:10 p.m., they notified my family that Alex was one of the confirmed deaths in the Aurora Theater massacre. And they asked me, what can we do for you now, Mr. Sullivan? And I said, well, you need to take me to Alex. And they had to get on the phone and talk to somebody else. And they said, we weren't ready for you right now, but we would let you know tomorrow morning. And the next morning they called, and a couple of friends went with me, and we went to the coroner's office, and I got to see Alex and talked with the coroner and actually had the autopsy report in my hand while she was explaining to me where Alex had been shot and the circumstances and all of that. And I took that information home to tell my wife and daughter about it. And some of the other things, so my number one assumption is, doesn't everybody else get that? I mean, we knew within 24 hours. As I say, I had the autopsy report in my hand. I was talking to the coroner about what had happened. It was my responsibility as Alex's dad to make sure that his mom and his little sister knew what had happened to him. And we had family and friends and coworkers that were all out in the public, and it was going to be our responsibility, I assumed, to let them know. And I don't know when what happened as far as the media. I mean, there were certainly many, many more stories for them to report as in relation to maybe what happened to Riley. But the question was, didn't I mean, and reading the emails that were sent to me, didn't they get the information from the coroner? Didn't they get
the information about the autopsy report and what they were going to do. So, I mean, that's my first question. The second question, as I say, you know, Alex had friends and family and coworkers, and why are we stopping at the age of 18, as it says in the bill? When you're murdered in a high-profile case like that, everybody wants to, you know, find out about it. And why are we just stopping at the kids? I mean, Alex was our kid. All of the others that were in there, they were someone else's kid. It didn't matter how old they were someone else's kid. But then on the other side, I just want to kind of remind you of the reasons why some of this information coming out is so important. There was a decision made by the police chief that was there in the theater, and he decided that when Veronica Mosier Sullivan, the 6-year-old who lay on the floor and was deceased, that no one else was going to have to see her, that he wasn't going to put his crew and everybody through that the rest of the day. So they picked her up and took her out. They left the rest of them, you know, there. And I'll never forget it, 2 o'clock in the afternoon when we had a briefing with the FBI and law enforcement and everybody. And they were telling us that they were worried that this killer had somehow booby-trapped the bodies, and that they were having a difficult time getting everything out there. I remember one parent asking, well, you know, have you at least gotten our kids off of that filthy floor yet? And again, they had to call around and find out, and they told us, yeah, that at 2 o'clock there were no kids on the floor anymore. But I think back to what we went through and think what it would have been like if there was a crime scene photo, just like this crime scene photo that I have fought for 3 years to get of my son Alex. What if there was a crime scene photo of Veronica Mosier Sullivan that those jury members needed to see, just like they needed to see Alex's crime scene photo, and that there's a lot of people around this building and this community that need to see this, to know what happens in these big events. I mean, personally, I think it could have changed the way that court case was decided. We might have my son's killer sitting in a cell here in the state of Colorado, waiting for someone to tell him when his final day was and what his final meal was going to be. Maybe we would still have the ability for people who have been impacted in the Boulder shooting, in the Colorado Springs shooting, in the Planned Parenthood shooting, to still get maybe the justice that they wanted if that officer had not made the decision to pick up that body and move it so that there's no crime scene photos and nobody else has to deal with this. The other thing about on autopsies, just to let everybody know, I believe that if you're going to do autopsies on people, you should at least let the next of kin know that those people have died before you do it. We had family members who were in Ohio and who were in Hawaii and California who couldn't even get the answer of whether their son or daughter was alive in that movie theater, and the state had already performed autopsies on them. Alex's didn't get done until the next day, but I hope you wrote down all the questions I asked during that. But I'm in favor of this. I know everybody else will be, and it's just concerning to me, and it was something that Terry and I had to deal with on a sunny Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the senator from Centennial both sharing the very difficult story and circumstances that he's personally experienced, as well as his perspective on this issue. And I want to try to answer the questions. With respect to why did, I think last first, why did we stop at age 18? I think everyone, if you've not dealt with this issue and discussed this issue and heard the testimony, there really is a very strong tension between, and the senator from Centennial actually sort of addressed this in his remarks, a tension between the need for the public to know and family privacy and having respect for a grieving family. And so I will tell you, 4 or 5 years ago, I passed a very absolute no minor autopsy is going to be released bill that passed overwhelmingly in both chambers and was promptly vetoed by the last one vote that mattered. I understood why that was, because I was always a little surprised that my bill didn't get more pushback than it did at the time. This bill is an attempt to deal with that tension and balance. When you get beyond minors, it seems that the support for an idea like this is really hard to get a consensus on, and it's not totally clear that if you went to the 1921 and adults with this kind of a program, that it wouldn't find a buzzsaw from the media and others such that the bill would be vetoed. So we're going to start here. We're going to start here. As to the other concern or concerns that were raised, part of the bill or implicit within the bill is the notion that the next of kin is going to, as far as the public is concerned, the next of kin is going to have control of that autopsy report release, that is. I know the coroner is the custodian. The next of kin is entitled to a full copy of that report. And if that person wishes to release it to others, they may do so. And there's no implication that they're prohibited from doing so or anything else. The idea is to respect grieving families as much as possible while satisfying the general need of the public to have transparency on mass shootings, on all sorts of incidents. So I'm happy to talk about this bill offline. I have to tell you, hours and hours and a lot of difficult, not heated or anything else, but just very difficult negotiation about where to draw the line is represented in these few pages. The one thing I would say is the press has been very, very good in the discussions. They get it. They are as appalled by the behavior of some of their number as anyone could be, just as I'm appalled sometimes by the behavior of people in my profession, and others are as well. So they get it, but they also have a need. The families, the proponents, the victims' rights organizations have been equally as good to understand why the press is pushing for transparency here and the need So in that sense, it's one of the most difficult, but at the same time, one of the most constructive kinds of discussions I've had. Colleague, there? We ask for an aye vote?
Seeing no further discussion, the motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1244. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 197?
Senate Bill 197 by Senators Roberts and Will and Representative McCluskey concerning measures for the conservation of water in the state and in connection therewith implementing the proposals of the Colorado River Drought Task Force.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 197 and the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee report.
Is there any discussion on the Agricultural and Natural Resources report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In committee, we made several amendments that were the results of further conversations with the Department of Natural Resources and other groups who had interest in the bill. Put in some more guardrails and some clarifications about one of the proposals and ensure that water that is being saved is staying in the region where it is being saved, and would ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Ag report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L005?
L005, amend the
Senator
Agriculture.
Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L005.
To the amendment.
Thank you. This further amends the committee report. This is the result of some more conversations with the Attorney General's office, and we thank them for their input on this. This makes it explicitly clear that the water being saved from the industrial companies that own water rights to produce energy will stay in the western slope and benefit the region where the water is right now.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L005. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there any further discussion? Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues. I'm very excited to be presenting Senate Bill 197 with Senator Will. You all will remember that last year we passed a bill that created the Colorado River Drought Task Force, and what this bill is the legislative or statutory recommendations that task force made for the legislature to consider. We have some really good things in here, including ensuring that we're protecting more water for agriculture, that we are protecting the environmental health of streams, that we are utilizing the water that's in northwest Colorado so that region can have a true just transition and hopefully can continue to be an energy producer in our state within the region using existing infrastructure. And we also have a recommendation in here from the Tribal Matters Sub-Task Force about allowing our tribes to get more funding for their water projects. There has been a lot of work that's gone into this bill. I want to take this opportunity to thank the task force that worked so hard over the summer and the fall. They traveled all over the state, put in many hours, and released a very comprehensive report. If you haven't seen it yet, I would encourage you to take a look. They did provide several recommendations that we are proposing in this bill, but also keyed up a lot of really important conversations for the future. And so we look forward to continuing those as well. But what's in front of you is a really well-reasoned, important step forward for Colorado's water future, and would appreciate your support.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, for me in this bill, it allows for the expansion of the state's agricultural water rights, but it protects those water rights. And so if there's other uses, that's what we a lot of times have struggled with these programs for maybe in-stream flow things and stuff, is there's water right holders that could could allow some of their water to be used to benefit the natural environment, et cetera, but they're scared of losing their water right. What this bill does, it ensures that you can do those kind of things. You can lease or loan without having your water right, by keeping your water right protected and not abandoned or up for abandonment in the future. And the industrial water rights for the Hayden and Crane power generation stations, this is going to be really a good thing, clear out to 2050. And what we've kind of done to the northwest part of the state, this is a much needed thing to keep where they can use their water in that fashion. So there's at a later time when there's Colorado's clean energy and greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals, that we can keep those energy producing jobs over in that region in the northwest Colorado. It's a really good bill.
Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L004?
L004, amendment printed bill
Senator
page 8.
Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L004.
To the amendment.
Colleagues, first appreciation to the sponsors and the work that came out of the task force. The bill does a number of things, and the good senator from Frisco touched on the impacts to the tribal community. So in the introduced bill, in Section 7, there's a conversation about the Water Plan Implementation Grant Program. And this is largely conducted, I don't know if it's exclusive, but usually through basin roundtables pursue these water implementation grant programs. So the current language says the board, which is CWCB, shall establish criteria that require matching funds of at least 25%, except that we made an exception in 21 and 22. The board could recognize reduced matching fund requirements. And then the new language in this bill says, in the case of a grant to the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe or the Southern Ute Indian Tribe, including all subdivisions or subsidiaries of, and business enterprise wholly owned by either tribe, the board may reduce or waive fund matching requirements. In conversation with the tribes and really thinking about how to better assist the tribes, the amendment is pretty simple. It changes the board may reduce or waive fund matching requirements to the board shall reduce or waive fund matching requirements. And I ask for an aye vote on the amendment.
Is there any discussion on Amendment L4? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the bill, a couple of conversations and thoughts. Again, the bill does a number of things. In the very first part of the bill, it talks about an in-stream flow loan program outside of where there's a whole process to get an in-stream flow adjudicated through CWCB. Here's an instance where we're going to set up a program and a much-needed program to offer an alternative pathway to loaning water from water stored in a reservoir to a benefit of it like an in-stream flow program without going through the whole CWCB process to secure and get an adjudicated right for an in-stream flow. So I had discussions with the sponsors, and we talked about it in the committee about the potential when you're doing this kind of work. You run the risk potentially of injuring other water rights. You take this reservoir of water, it all looks blue, but on paper it's actually colored, all different colors. Different owners own different pieces of that water. That water was put under there under an appropriation and a priority date. If you pull water out of, if you create a hole in the reservoir, so to speak, where you've moved water out, you run the risk, if we're not very thoughtful, of when you try to fill the hole, either that year or the next year, of injuring a water right in that process. So working with the sponsors and the Division of Water Resources about just making sure we have a process in place to secure those water rights, and we honor the doctrine of prior appropriation so we don't injure water rights going forward. And the other thing of note is thinking about how we protect these industrial water rights with the closure of power plants specifically in Division 6, which is the Yampa and the White River systems. So historically, if you stop using your water right for a period of 10 years, a decade, there's a process. The Division of Water Resources goes through an abandonment process where they identify where people have not been using their water rights. They contact you, they make a list, and every decade we go through this process through court for abandonment of water rights.
statute also includes language about your intent. So it gets really problematic about, I stopped using my water right, maybe it wasn't available to me because you have a junior water right. I never intended to ban that water right. So just a little education about what we're attempting to do here and protect that water right from abandonment proceedings going forward, just in Division 5, just on the Yampa and the White River systems. And the two industrial water rights we're talking about are both on the Yampa. And in a good effort to really hang on to those, I can imagine going forward, those entities will be working to identify other mechanisms to generate electricity in those stations, and they'll be able to use that water. And this just assures them some protection going forward. So it's a good bill and accomplishes a number of great things, and ask for your support of Senate Bill 197.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to come up. I hadn't planned to speak on this bill. I'd just like to extend my gratitude and appreciation to the good senator from Alamosa for the education that he has provided, both in his discussion in regards to this bill, but on several other occasions as well. For us to understand the complexity and nuance about water policy, I always welcome an opportunity to learn more, so thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 197. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 197 is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion for the body is to rise and report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the body will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
April 15, 2024. Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 197 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1293 is amended, and House Bill 1244 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 90 and House Bill 1057 laid over until April 17, 2024, and retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 60 and House Bill 1429 laid over until May 9, 2024, and retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 197 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bills 1293 is amended, 1244 is amended, passed on second reading, order revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 90, House Bill 1057 laid over until April 17th, retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 60, House Bill 1429 laid over until May 9th, and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title of House Joint Resolution 1021?
House Joint Resolution 1021 by Representatives Duran and Pelese and Senators Winter and Danielson concerning Sexual Assault Awareness Month and in connection therewith recognizing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and designating April 24, 2024 as Colorado Denim Day.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move for the passage of House Joint Resolution 1021.
Is there any discussion? Senator Winter.
Members, this is the actual passage of the Denim Day resolution that we celebrated last week. Thank you for all of those that donated, and we gave a great deal of money to CICASA, who helps survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And again, Denim Day comes from an Italian court case where a judge ruled that a woman's jeans were so tight that she must have helped her assailant take them off of her, and so it was consensual and not considered rape. And this is one of the many steps in the process to recognizing survivors and acknowledging that regardless of what you wear, you're never asking to be assaulted, and that we should believe survivors.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you again, colleagues, for celebrating and acknowledging this nationwide day. Just to concur with my colleagues' statements and just add a small bit about the end there, that this is also a broader effort to further do away with that stigmatization of victims and that kind of blaming culture, and help victims and survivors move forward with their healing and their justice as they see fit. And the first step there, as Senator Winter acknowledged, is believing the victim when they come forward. So again, thanks for your participation in this chamber and in the House. It was a good success, a good successful day, and I'm proud of my colleagues on this day. Thank you.
The motion is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1021. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, House Joint Resolution 1021 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Danielson.
Oh, I see objection. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. President. If there's no objection, I move to add the current roll call as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1021.
Thank you.
Will the clerk please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1022?
House Joint Resolution 1022 by Representatives Young and Duran and Senators Danielson and Exum, concerning recognizing the first full week of April 2024 as Direct Care Worker Appreciation Week, and in connection therewith recognizing the first full week of every April thereafter as Direct Care Worker Appreciation Week.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Joint Resolution 1022.
Is there any discussion? Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. This resolution is about honoring the helpers across Colorado, direct home care workers, who are mostly women, and many are women of color and immigrants, provide skilled, compassionate care, allowing senior citizens and people with disabilities to live with dignity in their communities. But a problem exists. Many of these direct care workers are overworked, underpaid, underrepresented in parts of the state government, which have oversight over the direct care industry. This is why last year, the good senator from Wheat Ridge and I ran a bill together, Senate Bill 23-261, to correct that oversight, giving direct care workers a seat at the table to help make recommendations for how to stabilize and improve the direct care workforce industry. That bill passed through the legislature and was signed by Governor Kapolis. And the Direct Care Workforce Stabilization Board was formed within CDLE, and staff with the direct care workers and employers. Our bill required, they are even starting the meeting, having at least 5 meetings already this year. I look forward to reviewing those recommendations from this board, which must be submitted to the legislature by September 1 of this year. Anything we can do to help improve the lives, pay, and working conditions of these vital workers is what we will do to the best of our abilities. I am thankful and grateful for everyone who works as a direct care worker, whose services any one of us may need someday, including myself. I am honored to be part of this resolution which honors them, and I encourage the Senate to vote yes on HJR 24-1022.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll just add some brief additions because Senator Exum, I just echo everything that he said, and it's been a real honor to work with him on this measure and the bill last year and the issue in general. When they passed the resolution in the House, the workers were here that day, and so I just want to add on to the end of the good senator's remarks that this is to acknowledge the hard work of these individuals and the benefit to our greater community that they provide. As he just said, that he will need the services someday. I can say right now that's something that I try to connect with people about when discussing these policies. You either are a caregiver now or will become or will need a caregiver. It's just a universal necessity. And so the more that we can prepare for that service, the better. Right now we're in a crisis and the industry is severely underserved. Consumers are severely underserved. There are not enough direct care workers. That's just a fact. So the board that we created last year in this body is meant to come together and provide solutions for that deficit. And also to ensure that these hardworking, caring, completely dedicated, amazing individuals are compensated fairly, and that will draw more people into the profession. So again, I thank you for your support of the measures in the past. I renew my commitment to working on the issue to provide more solutions going into the future, and I ask for an aye vote on this resolution.
The motion is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1022. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, House Joint Resolution 1022 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's no objection. I ask that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors to HJR 241022.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on House Joint Resolution 1022. Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed in the consent calendar?
Member of the Board of Governors of the Colorado State University System for a term expiring December 31, 2026, Dominic DeSanti of Pueblo, Colorado, to serve as a member with experience in production agriculture who resides in southern Colorado, occasioned by the resignation of Armando Valdez of La Jara, Colorado, appointed. Members of the Board of Trustees for the Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind, for terms expiring July 1st, 2026, Pete Lee of Colorado Springs, Colorado, occasioned by the resignation of Alan Ward of Poncha Springs, Colorado, appointed. George Welsh of Canyon City, Colorado, occasioned by the resignation of Stephen Lindauer of Castle Rock, Colorado, appointed. Effective July 2nd, 2023, for term expiring July 1st, 2027, Michael Stone of Boulder, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the blind community, appointed. Members of the Board of Trustees for Metropolitan State University of Denver, for a term expiring December 31st, 2024, Ryan Fraser of Aurora, Colorado, occasioned by the resignation of Michael Kopp of Denver, Colorado, appointed. Effective January 1, 2024, for terms expiring December 31st, 2027, Olivia Mendoza of Lakewood, Colorado, reappointed. Emily Renwick Garnett of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Kristen Darlene Hultquist of Parker, Colorado, reappointed. Laura Pinney of Denver, Colorado, appointed. Rachel Kagi of Denver, Colorado, appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, which include Dominic DeSanti of Pueblo for the Board of Governors of the Colorado State University System, Pete Lee of Colorado Springs, George Welsh of Canyon City, Michael Stone of Boulder for the Board of Trustees for the Colorado School of the Deaf and Blind, Ryan Fraser of Aurora, Olivia Mendoza of Lakewood, Emily Renwick Garnett of Denver, Caitlin Darlene Hultquist of Parker, Laura Pinney of Denver, and Rachel Kagi of Denver for the Board of Trustees for Metropolitan State University of Denver.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the confirmation of all the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 32 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Delivery to the governor.
April 15, 2024, to the governor for signature on Friday, April 12, 2024, at 12:59 p.m., Senate Bills 23, 24, 87, 128, 132, 134, and 178.
Announcements. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Judiciary Committee will be meeting at 1:30 in the old Supreme Court, which is 15 minutes upon adjournment of this august body. And we will be considering the bills in the order in which they appear on the calendar, both for action only. Thank you very much.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Education Committee will be meeting at 1:30 in room 357. Yeah, in 15 minutes. We aim to please. House Bill 1255 will be heard.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Transportation and Energy will be meeting, upon adjournment here in 15 minutes up in 352.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since Senator Pelton is excused today, I wanted to come down and announce that the Capitol Commission Bible study will be at 7:15 tomorrow. As he always says, come down, get fed and feed your soul. So that's down 109 in the basement, 7:15 in the morning. Also, you got all these on your desk today for the Sportsman's Caucus, which is Thursday. Just a reminder, please plan accordingly. Come out for your free wild game luncheon and join us out there for the Sportsman's Day at the Capitol. That's 11 to 2 p.m. So please join us. Thank you.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Appropriations Committee will be meeting bright and early tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. 8 a.m. Senator Lundin, if you are subbing onto the committee tomorrow, it will be 8 a.m. 8 a.m. tomorrow. You won't be there? Anyway, for those who will be there, want to make sure you know that tomorrow morning the Senate Appropriations Committee will be meeting. It is getting that time in the session where we just got to meet all the dang time. We will be hearing House Bills 1021, 1089, 1250, 1251, and Senate Bills 37, 43, 69, 72, 113, 121, 126, 139, 143, 152, 158, 167, 174, 190. And, just as a flag, though, folks, I want to make sure sponsors know and all of you here know some of these bills may be laid over. Either the canary won't be ready or some changes that folks want to make to the bill may not be ready to go. So these bills may be heard tomorrow in Senator Probst. They will certainly be on the calendar, but they may be laid over in committee. So just a flag to everybody, Senator Probst tomorrow, 8 a.m. with the bills I mentioned. Thank you very much.
Further announcements. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate recess until 1:30 today. Colleagues, we just got to go over some bills from the House. Look to route and pull over so you do not need to return.
The motion is for the Senate to recess until 1:30 today. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess until 1:30 today.